They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
A ban list can only mean one thing. A new format. With Cached Hero being phased out of the meta with the banning of Cached Hero Arise Heart, we have new challengers coming into the format thanks to people like Pack and Jesse Cotton. Unchained has become one of the most represented decks, and for a very good reason, as I have personally been playing the deck since, well, the release of the new Legacy support in Duelist Nexus. But there is another archetype that also got some amazing legacy support that hasn't seen as much play as Unchained, but still a very good deck to consider playing this format and playing against. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's join the Knights of the Round Table and set our hearts ablaze, as for the next month we learn, play and clap the competitive scene with Infernoble Knights. So, how did I end up playing this deck? Well, instead of just playing decks that I actually really wanted to play this format, apart from Unchained and Vanadium, which unfortunately there isn't really much going around, I decided to leave it up to, well, some of you guys, and more specifically, some friends who watch the channel. I decided in my infinite wisdom to give them a set list of cards, or decks should I say, that I would be able to, well, play for the next episode of The Source. And after the long deliberation of, well, everything in between and people trying to figure out what they want to see and what they didn't, we ended up with, well, 3 clear-cut winners. Rescue Ace, Vanquish Soul, and obviously, Infernoble Knights. And, well, during the last period of it, Rescue Ace and Infernoble Knights were neck and neck, and, well, as you can tell, Infernoble Knights had won this time, but Vanquish Soul and Rescue Ace will be getting their own videos entirely, well, within the coming months, I would say, depending on how expensive these decks get, because this isn't cheap at all. Anyway, so, let's get on to what we're starting with. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're starting with, a 41 card list that seems to be pretty standard across the entire board from what I know about this deck and from what I've researched over. Let's go over the deck list, starting with the Infernoble Knights themselves. We have the one of the 3 ofs that we need, Infernoble Knight Renowned. If you control a Fire Warrior monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If summoned this way, treat this card as a tuner. If special summoned, you can target a Fire Warrior monster or an equipped monster that is banished in your graveyard, accept itself and add it back to your hand. You can only use this effect of Infernoble Knights Renowned once per turn. This card is generally used to add back Immortal Phoenix Gearfried while in the combo itself to be able to summon it as our 4th or 5th summon depending on how wonky the combo goes, so we are safe from Nibiru. Then we have one of the normal summons of the deck, Infernoble Knights Ogier. When this card is equipped, the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects. I can only use each of the following effects of Infernoble Knights Ogier once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send a Noble Arms card or a Fire Warrior monster from deck to graveyard, except itself. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target a warrior monster you control, equip this card to the monster you control. This card is actually used for multiple 1-card combos and the main 2-card combo with, well, the field spell, Noble Arms Museum, and you definitely need to play 3 of it, and you actually summon it multiple times during the combo. Now we have a lot of the 1-offs. You have Infernoble Knights Captain Oliver, which actually should be a 2-of. I should actually be playing 2 of this because this card's actually pretty flipping good. Apologies. So we have 2 Infernoble Knights Oliver. When this card's in equipped card, your opponent cannot target equipped monsters with card effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Infernoble Knights Oliver once per turn. You can send 1 Fire Warrior monster or an equipped spell from your hand to special summon this card from your hand as a level 1. If this card's in your graveyard, target 1 more warrior monster you control and equip this card to that monster you targeted. All of the Infernoble Knights monsters have this same effect of being able to equip themselves to a monster you control. And actually you need this quite a lot to actually get into the new Link 1, Charlemagne, or as the TCG has called it, Emperor Charles the Great. I prefer the OCG name, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Now we have the 1-ofs. We have Infernoble Knights Mogus. When this card is an equipped card, the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by battle. You can only use each of the following effects of Infernoble Knights Mogus once per turn. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can shuffle into the deck 3 of your Fire Warrior monsters or Noble Arms cards, or also you can shuffle both that are banished or in your graveyard. Draw 1 card. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target a Warrior monster you control, equip this monster to that monster you control. Then we have Infernoble Knight's Precardetto. You can banish the card from your graveyard, special summon 1 level 4 lower warrior monster from your hand as a tuner. If this card is normal special summon, you can target a level 4 lower fire warrior monster in your graveyard, except itself, special summon it, and you cannot now special summon for the rest of the turn except warrior monsters. This is one of the few cards that lock you into warriors exclusively, so a lot of this deck, barring Baguska, as you can see in our extra deck, are warriors. Then we have... oh, never mind. I have 3 Oliver. It's just slightly awkwardly done. Anyway, obviously, or the 2 Oliver, whatever. Then we have one of the new cards, or one of the new cards, should I say, alongside Ricardetto, one of the main wombo combo pieces, Infernoble Knight's Turpin. When this card is an equipped card, the equipped monster that this card is equipped to can be treated as a tuner if used for synchro material. You can only use each of the effects of Infernoble Knight's Turpin once per turn. If you control a monster that is equipped with an equipped card, you can special summon this card from hand or from grave, but if you special summon it this way, banish it or leave it to the field. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 warrior monster you control, equip this card to the targeted monster. Then we have the honorary, well, not by name, but by archetype, I would suppose, Infernoble Knight's Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. You can banish 1 equip spell from your field or from graveyard, special summon this card from your hand at the start of the damage step. If this card attacks, you can equip 1 face-up monster on the field to this card, a maximum of 1, as an equipped spell that gives this card 500 attack. When a monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can send a face-up equipped card you control to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy the card. You can only use each effect of Immortal Phoenix Gearfried once per turn. This card is generally used on the end board and sometimes can be used in the middle of a combo. It's why some people actually play 2 Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. I'm starting out with 1 of them. Now, onto the spells and traps. 3 Heritage of the Chalice. Add 1 Noble Knight monster or Noble Arms card from deck or graveyard to your hand. If your Noble Knight monster equipped with a Noble Arms equipped spell is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, while this card is in your said graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. You can only use 1 Heritage of the Chalice effect per turn and only once that turn. So if you activate it once, you can't activate its effect to add itself back the same turn as you activated its original effect. Then we have one of the other new cards, Noble Arms Museum. All Fire Warrior monsters you control gain 500 attack. Once per turn, you can pay 1200 life points. Add a Noble Arms card from your deck to your hand, except itself. Once per turn, if the previous effect was applied this turn, you can target a Noble Knight monster that is in your spell and trap zone, special summon it. Also, if you activated this effect while you did not control Infernoble Knight's Emperor Charles, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except warrior monsters. Did you notice that there's not a once per turn clause on that card? You actually, in the 4-4 combo of this, you actually need to open 1 and then add the second one, which you do activate and use off of Angelica, which, obviously, incredibly good card. This card is actually incredibly strong and is very much what Infernoble Knights needed as a bridge between one part of the deck and the rest of it. Then we have the Infernoble Arms equipped spells themselves. We have 3 Durandal. Obviously, if you guys play Vanquish Soul or any warrior deck that plays Fire Warriors, you very much know this card. While this card is equipped to a monster, you can add a level 5 or lower warrior monster or fire warrior monster from your deck to your hand, then destroy this card. If this card is sent to the graveyard because an equipped monster was sent to the graveyard, you can target a level 5 or lower warrior monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except warriors. Then we have Infernoble Arms Ablaze, another one from Duelist Nexus. When this card is equipped to a monster, you can equip an Infernoble Arms equipped spell from deck or graveyard to this hand to 1 appropriate monster you control, and then destroy this card. If this card is sent to the graveyard because of an equipped monster is sent to the graveyard this turn, target a fire warrior monster that is in your graveyard or banished, add it back to your hand. You can only use 1 effect of Infernoble Arms Ablaze effect per turn, and only once that turn. Then we have Infernoble Arms Joyous. When this card is equipped to a monster, target a Fire Warrior monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand, destroy this card, and if this card is sent to the graveyard because an equipped monster was sent there, special summon a Fire Warrior monster from your hand. You can only use each effect of Infernoble Arms Joyous effect per turn, and only once that turn. A lot to go through and very much a lot to unpack, but when I do show you the combo, you guys will understand. Now, onto the Warrior Extenders. We have the package that I'm starting with, the Neospace Connector package, obviously going with 3 Neospace Connector and 1 Neospatian Aquadolphin. I don't need to tell you what these cards do. These cards have been around for fucking ages. You guys know what these cards do. Then we have the 2 Fire Warrior extenders. We have a Fire Flint Lady. If you control a warrior monster, special summon this card from your hand. Or you can activate the effect, send this card from field to go, special summon a level 4 or lower warrior monster from your hand. And if you do, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. You can only use each effect of Fire Flint Lady once per turn. Then we have Super Quantum Red Layer. If you control no monsters, special summon this card from your hand. It's pretty much a Cyber Dragon and a very much needed extender. Now, for the non-Infernoble Arms equipped spells, we have DDR, Different Dimension Reincarnation. Discard 1 card, then target one of your banished monsters, special summon it in attack position, equip it with this card. When this card leaves the field, destroy the equipped monster. This card doesn't particularly come up a lot, apart from milling it off of a sold, but it's definitely come up in the past, like, day or so where I have been testing this. Then we have one of the most broken equipped spells to this day that I didn't realize was this good. Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. Equip only to a warrior monster. It gains 300 attack during the main phase. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 2 warrior monsters. You can banish 2 warrior monsters from your graveyard and add this card to your hand. You loop this card plenty of times over, and you definitely need to play at least one of it. It is the only technical brick in the entire deck, to what I know. Then we have just non-engine in general. We have 3 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, 1 Rotor, 3 Book of Eclipse, and 3 Infinite Impermanence. Now, extra deck time. This is where things can possibly change up quite a lot, depending on what type of version of the deck you'd like to play. So, starting with the Infernoble Knights monsters, we have Emperor Charles the Great. This Link monster requires a level 9 Infernoble Knights Emperor Charles equipped with an equipped card, which seems really fucked, and it seems really hard to make, but ironically enough, you make this really fucking easily. I did it today through Joel using, well, Ferocious Flame Swordsman, which I was very happy about. If this card is Link summoned, you can target an Infernoble Knights Emperor Charles in your graveyard. This card's name becomes the target's original name, and it gains the target's effects. Then equip the target to it, and the targeted monster is treated as an equipped spell and gains 500 attack. Once per turn, when a spell or trap or effect is activated, you can send 1 equipped spell from your hand or face up the field to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. We play 2 of this guy. We could play the 3rd, I'm thinking about it, but I'm just going to stick with the basis of what I know. Then obviously we have 2 Assault, 2 Tales of Noble Knights, requires 2 warrior monsters. You guys know what this card does, but just in case you don't, if this card is linked summon, you can add 1 warrior monster from deck to your hand, but for the rest of the turn, you can add normal, special summon, or normal set or special summon monsters with the name, nor activate their effects. You can send any number of equipped spells with different names from deck to graveyard, special summon a warrior monster from the deck whose level equals the total number of equipped cards sent. So if you send 1, special summon a level 1 warrior, so on and so forth. And obviously, you guys know what this card does. I'm not going to repeat myself. Then, one of the newer cards, Angelica, Princess of Noble Arms, requires a tuner and 1+ non-tuners, which makes it, by technicality, generic. If this card is special summon, you can add a Horn of Oliphant or a card that mentions the Infernoble Knights Emperor Charles from deck to hand. When a card or effect that is activated that targets this card on field, or when this card is targeted for an attack, quick effect, you can send a Fire Warrior monster from deck to graveyard, and if you do, banish this card until the end phase. Then you can special summon a Roland monster from deck or extra deck. You normally tag out into the next card that I'm going to tell you guys about, Infernoble Knights Captain Roland. If this card is synchro summoned, which you don't particularly do a lot to my knowledge currently, you can activate this effect during the end phase, send 1 equipped spell from deck to grave, then add a warrior monster from your deck to your hand. During the main phase, if this card is in the graveyard, in your graveyard, quick effects, you can target 1 warrior monster you control, equip this target to it, or equip this card to the target, and it gains 500 attack, which that effect doesn't particularly come up all that much. You can only use each effect of Infernoble Knights Captain Roland once per turn. Then, well, we have to play this. It's not, well, I'm thinking of playing 2. It depends on where I'm going. Infernoble Knights Emperor Charles. If an equipped card becomes equipped to a monster on the field, even during the damage step, you can destroy 1 card on the field. During the end phase, you can equip 1 spell from hand or from graveyard to this card, and then equip a Fire Warrior monster from the deck to this card, and it gains 500 attack, so on and so forth. Then obviously, we have one of the Xyz monsters that I'm hoping to play for this, King or Artorigus, King of the Noble Knights. It requires 2 level 4 Noble Knights monsters. When this card succeeds summoned, you can take out up to 3 Noble Arms equipped spells into your graveyard. Equip those targets to this card, and obviously a lot of the time you just combo from there. Once per turn, you can attach one Exceed material from this card. Destroy any number of spells and traps equal to the number of Infernoble, or equal to the number of Noble Arms equipped spells you control. So yeah, that's the technical engine out of the way for the extract, and now we have the non-engine. Obviously, if we brick, can't get anywhere. When in doubt, book screw it out. You guys know what this card does. We then have a card I haven't seen played a lot in the sense of just generally before this deck. Ferocious Flame Swordsman. It requires 2 monsters with different XG link summon. All the warrior monsters on the field gain 500 stack. If this link summon card is destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect while it's in its owner's monster zone, you can target a non-link warrior non-link warrior monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Ferocious Flame Swordsman once per turn. Then another card that's not particularly seen a lot of play until this modern version of Infernobles, Rat's Hen, the Heavenly General, requires 2 monsters with the same type, and obviously our entire deck is warriors. Who would have thunk it, eh? Once per turn, during the stamina phase, you can target 1 face-up monster this card points to. Special summon a level 4 or lower monster with the same type as the monster from your hand to the zone this card points to. So yeah, you have to summon it to either the down left or down right. At the start of the battle phase, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy. You can only use this effect of Rat's Hen, the Heavenly General, once per turn. And obviously we have Ablaze. We do need to end on a shit ton of negates because why the fuck not? Then we have the Towers monster. When in doubt, Towers are out. Goki the Power Load Ogre. It requires 2 warrior monsters. Gain attack equal to the combined link ratings of all other link monsters you control times 200. This link summon card is unaffected by other card effects. You can trigger 1 Goki link monster, target cards on the field up to its link rating, destroy them. So you can destroy itself and then pop 4 cards. And then obviously Synchro deck, you've got to play it. Baron de Fleur, the actual only other non-engine Synchro in the entire deck. So yeah, that's the current deck list. Now let's talk about some spicy techs. Right, let's go over some techs that I've seen in this deck. Well, for the first one, kind of isn't a tech. We have Battling Boxer King Dempsey. This card is generally used to play over the King Artorigus XCs, but one thing that makes this a tech, in my opinion, is that you can actually add Battling Boxer Uppercutter to be added or normal or special summon. It is a fire warrior. When this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Battling Boxer or 1 counter trap from deck to hand except itself. Obviously, if you add the monster, that's relevant to you. The counter trap we add is Flamveil Counter. When a spell or trap is activated, banish 1 fire monster with 200 defense from the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. It's a searchable counter trap. Who would have guessed it? It's an Outer Dark Ruler. So, one of the cards that I haven't seen all that much of, apart from up until now, is Metal Silver Armor. While you control this card with an equipped monster, your opponent cannot target monsters on the field or in either graveyard, or that are banished, except the equipped monster. So if you pair this with Infernoble Knight's Oliver, which prevents your cards from being targeted if they have an equipped card, you then make an untargetable board, which is very, very big. Then we have Ignoble Knight of High Lancelin, which, well, it's a very more specific version of Angelica in my opinion. When this card is synchro summoned, you can equip 1 noble arms equipped spell from your card from the deck to this card at the end of the battle phase. This card destroyed a monster by battle and send it to the graveyard as a noble knight or a noble arms card from deck to hand. In my opinion, as of current right now, I probably won't play this over Angelica. Angelica seems to be just a lot better to play in a lot of instances, as it can, well, tag itself out for imperm. So yeah, that's currently what we have going on.
So, while you guys are watching the 2 main combos of this deck, or the 2 main lines you need to know, I want to talk about something that's relevant to this week in particular. And that is the WCQ that's being held in Canterbury on the 7th of October, which is like a couple of days from me recording this voiceover. As you know, these videos are a challenge to me as well as a bit of fun. And, well, I know this, and so do you guys. However, me taking a deck like this to a regional this early on with my lack of knowledge around the deck and the understanding of the siding patterns within it, it makes playing 7 or nearly even 8 or 9 rounds of Swiss and possible top cut a fucking nightmare. And, well, being incredibly unfun as a result of it, especially when I'm learning something new and attending my first WCQ. So, we unfortunately will not be playing the deck at the WCQ itself. However, if there are any players that are actually playing Infernobles within my rounds, or, well, within my friends' rounds, if I can get to talk to them at least a little bit, I will try and record my interactions as best as I can, see what I can learn, and, well, just gain some knowledge from the community. Right, I'm going to stop talking now. Enjoy the rest of the combos. So after all the friendly introductions and explanations about what's happening and where we're going, it's finally time to duel. after hours of testing, I decided to head back to the drawing board with this deck. Not for any bad reason by any stretch of the imagination, but to iron out some issues that I'm having with the deck at the moment and to take out and put in some cards that I may or may not use. But I didn't do a lot of this cooking alone. I got the help of one of my mates who knows this more modern version of Infernoble to help me out, and he made some very valid points that I have taken into consideration. To start, addressing the elephant in the room, the switch between King Artorigus and Battling Boxer King Dempsey. After a long line of deliberation, backwards and forwards, I decided to take my mate's advice and play Dempsey over Artorigus for, well, 3 main reasons. Number 1. Dempsey as a monster is more generically summonable, only requiring 2 level 4 monsters to exceed summon, whereas Artorigus especially relies on 2 Noble Knights monsters. Number 2. Dempsey allows me to bridge the gap from one part of the deck to the other, find any missing name that I may be needing for the combo, or even get an extender like Fireflint Lady. And number 3, the Battling Boxer package. Now that we're starting 1 copy of Uppercutter and Flamveil counter, it gives us an extra interruption alongside our Charlemagne, Gearfried and Baron. Despite Artorigus technically being better after Isolde resolves its effect, that becomes a crutch. Resolving Isolde's effect to dump, mill, and, well, just resolve Isolde in general becomes mandatory for the card to work properly, alongside being able to summon it after Isolde even resolves, which then, what's the point in playing it? So, in the long run, it's not worth it, despite me buying the ulti for the card. It's pretty as fuck, but unfortunately, for now, it will be binder fodder until I decide to play the card again if it's even better than Dempsey in the long run. We also decided to play the second Infernoble Knights Emperor Charles Synchro, as multiple times the second one has come up for me, being made later in the match when we haven't been able to make the double Charlemagne push we can make the first time round. Sticking with the extra deck theme just a little bit longer, I made a controversial decision to cut Ablaze in favour of playing a Beast Dweller. You'd think that me switching out one non-warrior generic Link monster for another non-warrior generic Exceeds monster would be stupid and counterproductive, since a 3200 attack and 4 counter Ablaze is kinda hard to earn in the first place. But since Tearlament is coming back into the format, I've got to be ready for it somehow. And, well, since there is a way to make Dweller in the combo, why not? Also, I'm very well aware that I should be playing Baguska, and I would like to play Baguska, but with my lack of confidence in the deck currently, or more in my ability to play the deck, I am playing the second Emperor Charles over Baguska, and that might change sooner rather than later. If not, fuck it, we ball. I decided to switch out Droll and DD Crow in the main and side, because despite Droll falling off and out of favour with a lot of people, including myself, not playing many decks that out it or even need to play it in the main deck, because, well, the main deck that people worry about this format is Unchained, it doesn't get hit by it a lot. So why play it over DD Crow or even a Bestial package to out something like the eventual Unchained Soul Lord of Yama? Well, for this deck, it's a lot easier for us to figure out. Unchained generally goes first a lot of the time, and if they're going second, they either threaten Zeus with Machinex, or they have to rely on a Fenrir Banish, so it falters quite a lot. And, well, the former needs to require a Dark Contract to be drawn. Yeah, it is a 3-of, but still need to draw it. So, with the standard combo of Gearfried and Charlemagne, or the full combo of the double Charlemagne push, we should be able to deal with the deck no problem, and, well, going second, Droll covers a lot of other matchups like Vanadium and Fluunderies. Play the Bird Up meme.
Hey, you guys are watching Bird Up.
But unfortunately, we do have to respect the Bird's word, as well as some rogue matchups that can catch us off guard if we're not careful. So that's why we're going to make people cry, seethe and moles this format. To finally cap off what seems to be me talking for way too fucking long, let's address one thing I learned about this deck. It struggles going second. This deck has a massive problem with it going second into literally any board that sets up any number of negates. So pretty much the entirety of the pendulum strategy. But in all seriousness, this deck struggles immensely to go second currently, and that may be changeable with the cash package in this deck. God, I fucking hate saying that. But for now, I'm remedying that problem in an almost exclusively blind second deck with cards like Dark Ruler Evenly and Harpy's Feather Duster to help me out all across the board when I can't go first and set up the board we normally do. Week 2 is on the more physical side of playing instead of, well, just cooking online with friends. But before I go into any physical play this week at locals, let's talk about some more changes I've made. Don't worry, we will get to some games, just give me some time, it'll make sense. So, as of me recording this weekend that has just been and gone, I personally attended the previously mentioned WCQ that was held by Dice and Destiny over in Canterbury, where the new meta was very much running rampant. And said new meta was a lot of Tearlament and a lot of Chimera branded. The former of which seems to be a lot harder to play into, especially with all the new variants that are running around, like Destiny Heroes, or the Destiny Hero engine with the Malicious Denier and Dangerous, the Cartesia engine, and hell, even a Rescue Ace engine to draw cards. So, what am I going to do to remedy this problem? Bestials. I'm very well aware that in this deck we are playing DD Crow, and it does a very similar job. But since we have to respect flaw to this format, as well as Dimension Shifter, just in a lot of other banished decks like Exorcisters, playing a Bestial to summon turn 1 and banishing said Shifter seems to be a better play despite the Warrior lock the deck is under a lot of the time. It also is a very good kind of half-assed stalling tactic when something isn't quite going my way. Like breaking on equip spells, that seems to be happening a lot recently. So, we decided, or more specifically, I decided to switch out the 3 DD Crows in the side deck in place of 1 Bestial Magmu and 2 Bestial Duelist Worm. I realistically could just play 3 Duelists, and the reason I'm not is I just simply don't own 3 Duelist Worm. I would also like to talk about a card that's coming in Age of Overlord that is actually going to be of some immediate use to us in the deck, and that is the equip spell Angelica's Angelic Ring. This card is interesting to use and seemingly incredibly powerful against a lot of decks, and well, considering decks rely a lot on spells these days, this card is incredibly strong. This card says, equip this card to a monster you control already equipped with an equip card. You can only control 1 Angelica's Angelic Ring just 1 copy of it. Each turn, negate the effect of your opponent's spell card or effects that resolve. So it's instantly resolving, or it's instantly negating the first spell effect or spell activation or effect that my opponent activates. Once per turn, while this card is equipped to an equipped monster, I can gain 500 life points, destroy the card, and if you do, the equipped monster cannot be targeted by card effects while it's faced up in the monster zone. This card is a common in Age of Overlord, especially and considering how strong this card actually is, despite it being quite niche. It's very, very good for it being a low rarity. The good thing is that in the standard connector combo that I actually haven't shown off, which I probably should, this card is easily accessible by milling it off of a sword or even foolishing it off of Ogier. As long as we have access to it, it is a mandatory negate of the first spell each turn, so it actually does go against a lot of other cards that would otherwise be very much problematic, like Dark Ruler, Forbidden Drop Play, as it technically doesn't respond, it just happens. It's a mandatory effect to happen. So yeah, that card is going to be of some use to us in the coming weeks, but not right now. Enough talking, time for locals. Righty, ladies and gentlemen, so we are here at locals, as we should be. Obviously, a lot of the time I'm here early, so I can set up, obviously, the tripod that you guys are currently standing on, as well as just getting some understanding, getting some final test hands in before, well, a lot of locals time, even though locals only starts in a couple of hours for us. And obviously, we are playing Infernoble Nights today, and, well, simply put, we are going to hopefully at least try and take 1 or maybe even 2 rounds off of some duelists here. Will it work? I have no idea. I am actually put this deck to the test a lot in the sense of against physical people that I haven't played a lot. So yeah, locals are going to start in a couple of hours. I do, however, want to talk about a conversation I had with someone from the Infernoble Nights Duelist Facebook page, and I yesterday evening put up a post talking about what my deck list was for week 2, and one kind individual asked me why am I only playing 1 red layer instead of 2, and well, they suggested that I would play maybe 2 or even 3 red layer. Currently, I'm not gonna do that, but going into week 3, I will probably make that change, considering the fact that this Saturday we also have a Age of Overlord pre-release actually right here, which you guys will actually see in its own video and see a couple snippets. It's still here in this video of obviously where we actually do need to cut down on some engine, maybe I think it's like 1 OGL or something along those lines, where we can actually fit the Angelica's Angelic Ring as well as the extra red layer. So yeah, hopefully we should be able to do really, really good today. So, game 1, or round 1 should I say, was against a deck I don't particularly have a very good track record against, in a very similar to way that I don't have a good track record against branded Despia, or any branded deck for that matter. And that is Rickus on Avalon, or in this more specific instance, Black Garden Rickus and Avalon. So we get in a bit of a toughy one here today, lads. We started the first game when we actually managed to win the dice roll, so we were able to go first, and we open up a decent enough hand with Neospace Connector, which obviously, if you guys know the deck enough by now, we're able to get to a Sold Charlemagne as well as an Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, if we do it correctly. And well, we started off by normal summoning said Neospace Connector and activating its effect to go and special summon our Aquadolphin Boy directly from the deck. And well, why not take a look at our opponent's hand? We decided to activate the Aquadolphin's effect, discarding a card and taking a peek at our opponent's hand, which, my, seems to be pretty fucking stacked with, I believe, Droll, Lava Golem, and, well, full Ricker combo. And, well, because that Lava Golem gave me so much PTSD in testing before the locals even had fucking started, I tunnel visioned to that Lava Golem and got rid of it, taking the 500 in the process. But that was probably the actual worst thing to do as well. I can play around Lava Golem pretty easily by ending on just a single Charlemagne and probably a couple cards in hand and definitely some back row. But unfortunately, well, that Droll that we did not discard bit us in the fucking arse when we added off of a Sold. We added the red layer, which obviously we can't normal, special, or set this turn. But after that, we couldn't add as he dropped said Droll on us. So that Dempsey we were going to make to add the Renown to extend, no, we were not able to. And well, because of said lack of extension in the deck, unfortunately, that Dempsey should have technically been a Baguska because, well, I knew that I would have been playing into Droll, and well, this deck currently, in my experience, doesn't play too well into Droll. So unfortunately, we just had to scoop up game 1 and then go directly to game 2. Game 2, I very much knew that me still going first was definitely something I was going to do. So instead of siding in anything extra, maybe something like Bestials and the Battling Box package, which actually wouldn't do much all in this specific instance, I decided to just side in the 3 Cosmic Cyclone, as I was very well aware that the field spells that were used in this deck, so something like Rika Concon or Therion Discolosseum, as well as the previously mentioned Black Garden, which was actually never used in the match, they were very integral to the strategy. So starting in 3 Cosmic Cyclone, and I believe the Harpy's Feather Duster into the deck for this game 2 was actually very well established and actually very helpful for threatening some threats later. So we actually opened up the same combo again, managed to end on a Sold Charlemagne as well as Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, and in this specific instance we also ended on I can't remember what else it was, but it was another card that didn't particularly have any merit to it at that particular time. It just allowed us to get follow-up as long as it left the field. If I remember, it may be like Infernoble, like Mogus or something. So, well, we had a pretty good board to start off with. Our opponent started with Unexpected Die. We chained Ash. They tried to chain Called by the Grave, but we negated with the Charlemagne, sending the Almace to Grave, which allowed us to actually pop off, which turns out that ruling was actually wrong. It has to be the monster and the card that ends it, not just the card itself. So I kind of cheated in that specific instance, but it doesn't particularly matter all that much. But unfortunately, my opponent couldn't particularly do all that much, as I managed to equip Infernoble Knights Captain Roland after they had normal summoned normal summoned, I can't remember what monster it was, popped the said normal summon, and they just scooped it up into game 3 from there. And, well, game 3 against Ricard, or even Sonavalon for that matter, or any deck that gains life points a lot, is actually incredibly difficult, considering the fact that we actually need to pay 1200 life points for us to even attempt to resolve the effect of Nobelon's Museum. We weren't going to do very much in this matchup in game 3, unfortunately, but considering the fact that my opponent wanted to go first, set up full Ricker board in addition to a Cactus Bouncer, which forbade us from literally special summoning at all while they control a plant monster, and trust me, their board was full of it. They unfortunately managed to take this entire round into a game 2, or into a 2-1 victory for them. So unfortunately we are already down a round, which isn't very good, and well, this will be the same sort of track record for the rest of the evening. Guess who's back? that deck that decides to mill yours as well and fuses some fucking mermaids into some purple cards. Fuck. Well, Tearlament was our round 2, and as you can guess by a lot of Tearlament matchups if you've played them recently, this didn't go as well as I would hoped in the case for this deck. And, well, considering my phone died halfway through me recording this, you're just going to have to settle for my talking head for like a good next couple of minutes. Game 1 went on for a really, really long time. Almost a little too long, and a lot of that was attributed to the fact that my opponent thought that Goki the Powerload Ogre's effect to tribute itself and pop as many cards up to its link material was a quick effect. It is not. So they decided to try and spend a lot of their time trying to figure out how to play around that, but when they read the card properly, they were like, it's not a quick effect, I could just do as much as I please. But unfortunately, that was our main problem. We actually couldn't extend past just a simple Goki Powerload Ogre in our first turn board. And well, Tearlament does what Tearlament does. It just makes a lot of monsters, makes a lot of interruptions on your turn and as well as their own. And unfortunately, we had to go into a game 2, which actually was like 10 minutes left on the clock. And well, by the time we had managed to get around to actually siding in and trying to figure out what we needed to side in for this matchup, it was only a couple minutes left. Timer was called on the round as it was my opponent's first turn. They baited out one of my ashes with a Merly, and well, they foolish buried the scatter shot for time. Well then, seems to be that we are 2-0 down today, boys, and today is not looking good at all. And for the third and final round for this, well, a little bit of a smaller locals, we had our best boy Andrew, who was deciding to be Omega based today and play Resonators, a deck that I thought about for this episode actually, alongside obviously Rescue Ace and Vanquish Soul, but unfortunately I didn't have that much interest in the deck. But well, let's see what this deck can do. So game 1 we decided to go first because we won the dice roll and actually managed to go for the full combo. So we had double Charlemagne, an untargetable Isolde, and an Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. So we were pretty fucking set, and well, because of the way Andrew likes to break boards and well, just fuck around and find out, he managed to do said fucking around and definitely found out how easy it was to break the Infernoble boards that I could make, despite them being like the fullest they could be with the most amount of negates. And well, unfortunately, it is one of those things that Andrew very much also knows me as a person as well. He knows what decks I like to play and how I play the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. So yeah, he managed to break my entire board, OTK me with big motherfucking dragons, and well, we just had to go to game 2, and hopefully this game 2 would be better. It wasn't. Game 2, I decided to side in all of my Bestials as well as my going second cards, of which I saw none of them. I saw absolutely none of my going second cards, none of my, just no cards that were actually playable. I drew a hand of one Infernoble Knights monster that was not a combo whatsoever, 3 equip spells, and an Imperm, or something along those lines. It wasn't very helpful. So the 4 cards that I had that were relevant to the deck, so the 3 equip spells plus the Infernoble Knights monster, I can't remember which one I drew, absolutely dead. Completely fucking irrelevant. And well, considering Red Dragon Archfiend, well, makes big fucking dragons, Andrew was able to go into the 4-4 combo with Red Supernova Dragon, Scar Dragon Archfiend, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, Bane, and Abyss, and well, managed to OTK us from there. So, overall today, we were actually 0 wins and 3 losses. Fucking yikes. Overall, unfortunately, I'm not particularly happy with how this deck is working right now. It seems to be one of the really awkwardly flimsy versions of the deck that I shouldn't have made in the first place. I should have just kind of stuck to my guns and stuck with the standard version of the deck instead of making changes. And well, some of the changes I made were very, very, not controversial as such, but very, very, what we like to call it, very wrong. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to rectify these mistakes and hopefully be able to sort out what's going on with this deck. Because the deck also today seemed to lack consistency and, well, just generic power that I feel like the deck should have.
So, going into week 3, we are going to be considering a lot of different changes, and well, one of the main things we do actually have to consider for this
format, or for this upcoming format, is post Age of Overlord. So we have to actually contend with a lot of different other decks, and well, we have to also consider some new cards at our disposal. Well, one card by technicality that's engine, the rest is just more of just an afterthought. Anyway, this locals that has just gone, so the one that I recorded that yesterday, wasn't a very good locals for me. It was one of those locals that I just, for some reason, seem to have everything right, but I do everything wrong, which is also attributed to some of the changes I had made for the deck. So I decided to go back to the drawing board and see what we were doing wrong. So let's get started with it. So we have obviously the general deck list that we have right here. And as you can see, I have taken out the copies of Joel and Lockbird. Joel and Lockbird as a card, this format, isn't particularly all that good in the sense of that we don't need it all that much, and a lot of other decks don't particularly die to it. And if they do, then they're just kind of rogue decks at this point, then, aren't they? But unfortunately, those that can play through it, so Infernoble Knight, Manadium, Unchained, Branded Chimera, so on and so forth, they don't really have a problem with it, dealing with it, or they sit up and negate with within the time that I can use Joel. So in a lot of the times it's either Baron, or I think in the case of in the case of Branded Chimera, it's Mirror Sword Knight. But so I decided to take out the Joel entirely and not even bother about it. So that would put us down to 30 cards, or 38 cards, sorry. So I decided to put in 2 Triple Tactic Talents for, obviously, the Draw 2 is pretty fucking good in my opinion, as well as the Hand Rip, and as you can tell, I'm playing Zeus, which means if we take an Xyz monster, we have a secondary win condition, I would suppose. But that's not what that's mainly there for. It's mainly for the draw power and mainly for some extra interruption that if I may need it. So, also, I've decided to put in the main deck Infernoble Knight's Roland, because it turns out that within the locals that I did, I could resolve Angelica multiple times, and it was one of those things that I feel like I should have been playing either more copies of Captain Roland, which is not a very good idea because there's not really a lot of space in this deck going forwards anyway, or playing the main deck one like a lot of people online have been saying. So I decided to play the main deck one. A lot of other things haven't particularly changed apart from just the one Ogier being cut for the Angelica's Angelic Ring. Not a lot has particularly changed apart from some changes that I was already backwards and forwards on. So obviously we had the one, we now went from 2 to 1 Infernoble Knights Emperor Charles, because even though that late game this card is pretty good to make because you can make a second Charlemagne, but it's one of those cards that by technicality you only need to play one of it, which then leaves us with some extra deck space. So obviously we put in the Baguska again and took out Abyss Dweller. And that seems kind of a dumb thing to do in the sense that Abyss Dweller is incredibly good against tier, but currently at my locals, tier, there's only like 1 or 2 people that play tier, and well, we have DD Crow for tiers, so it doesn't particularly matter all that much. That is also another segment, or another segue to something I've changed up. I'm playing DD Crow over Bestials, because Bestials as cards are incredible. I like using Bestials quite a lot, however, they are not particularly that good against decks that are not light or dark. So, for example, Pearly, even though their monsters are light and dark respectively, I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll put it up on the screen. Their spells are the main thing that's in their graveyard, and DD Crow actually hits the spells, whereas Bestials do not. So we're just kind of leaving that up in the air for the time being. And obviously we are playing, we had the Baguska back in because, well, the bricking that we experienced yesterday was very, very hard, because it was one of those things where we kind of needed to have a secondary backup plan for if we happen to get Joel and Lockbird, and we didn't manage to get to Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. So Baguska is the backup plan. And obviously, if we happen to leave Dempsey on field, or even leave the Baguska on field, we can attack with them and make Zeus, as long as we're not Warrior Lock. So yeah, that's neither here nor there. Well, actually, it is here and there. It's a very good card. But there is one thing I do need to actually explain to you guys, is that I took out the Battle Inboxer package from the entire deck itself, because it turns out the package that I was playing, so the 1 uppercutter, 1 flamveil counter, was completely wrong. It's not how you should be playing the package, which, okay, I'm not really worried about it all too much. The actual package is, I believe it's 3 uppercutter, 1 sparrow, 1 flamveil counter.
of which I am probably not going to play that Battling Boxer package because I am massively in love with the connector packages, especially like New Space and Aquadolphin ripping a Droll or a Nibiru out of my opponent's hand. It's something that is incredible and something I should be very much taking advantage of whenever I can physically do it. I also want to quickly talk about that I was going to consider taking out Baron, but in the previous locals where some of the times that I had really awkward hands, a red layer plus a level 4 plus Renowned or one of the level 1s is very much a good thing for me to be able to make because it's a 3000 acts as a negate, acts as a pop, and if I happen to have an Infernoble Emperor Charles in my graveyard, I can actually tag Baron out into Infernoble Emperor Charles. So yeah, those were the changes that we decided to make for this deck. But let's talk about some other considerations for the deck. So, I'm going to quickly show off some ideas that I've been having or that I have been seeing over the last couple of days. So this bit's going to be a little bit more of a ramble part of the video before I decide to go any further. So, we're going to start with the second red layer or the second Fireflint Lady. I can understand why people are playing these cards, especially the second Fireflint or even the second red layer. I can very much understand them both. Red layer is incredible going first. Fireflint Lady is also really, really good going first if you can normal summon at least one warrior. But for now, I'm unsure of which one I would like to go with post Age of Overlord or even into the next version of the deck. Realistically, it will be a second red layer because I feel like I have a bit of a problem trying to get to the second warrior if I can't get to it. So being able to special red layer, normal summon like OGL or something, or maybe special summon Renowned or whatever, it's just getting to the second warrior for is solid. And it's one of those things that I've personally been having a bit of trouble with lately. So I might be tossing up and turning with it. Fireflint Lady, I've been told to play the second one. I'm unsure about it. I will probably consider it if I can find another one. I actually don't know if I own at least one, but that's one of the things. Now, let's get on to some newer cards. So, I am very well aware that you guys can't see these two cards here, but I will talk about them now. So we have Gen the Diamond Tiger and Ken the Dragon Warrior, or the Warrior Dragon. These cards are technically meant to be played in a very similar package to how Neo Space Connector and the Battling Boxer is played. So the way this works is that Gen and Ken can summon each other from the deck, I believe. Yeah, or from the hand or from the deck to your opponent's side of the field and then apply an effect. So Gen will force your opponent to discard a card. So your opponent would make you discard a card. And Ken will make your opponent's, will make the opponent that's activating it draw 2 discard one. So say for example, I give my opponent a Ken the Warrior Dragon. They have to activate its effect as it is actually mandatory to make me draw 2 and discard a card, which is incredibly good in the sense that it will actually it will allow you to activate Triple Tactics Talents or Triple Tactics Thrust without your opponent being able to stop it because both the effects are mandatory to do so. Will I play this little combination of cards over Neo Space Connector and Neo Space Aquadolphin? Excuse me, absolutely not. I can very much understand where this card is coming from, considering while they're both warriors, I can search them. But the problem is that I don't need more normal summons. I need more ways to be able to go from normal summon to link to then to the rest of the deck. So it's something I'm not really considering all that much. Then another card that I have spoken about already, which is Metal Silver Armor. As long as you control a monster equipped with this card, your opponent cannot use the effect of spells, traps, or monster effects that target one monster apart from the equipped card. So the main way to go about this is to equip this card from your graveyard with Charlemagne and then equip Infernoble Knight's Oliver from the deck, which makes an untargetable infinite loop for Charlemagne. It's one of those things where I'm considering playing it, it's just trying to get my hands on it, and that's probably the hardest part of it. So, we're also going to get to now the expensive part of the different thoughts. Jesus Christ, I'm stuttering a lot. And that is the Dear Bellstar stuff. These cards are actually incredible because this searches this, or this searches the Dear Bellstar. You can special summon it by sending a card from your hand or field to the graveyard, and then you can use this to tribute this to special summon Renowned, which is pretty good considering you don't really waste a normal summon on that, which I think is pretty good. But the problem is that a lot of the time you are locked into warriors trying to play the deck. So having a card that in the deck that's not specifically a warrior, in this case the Duelist of the Black Witch is a spellcaster, it's something that's kind of conflicting, but a good confliction in the sense that like you want to play it, but you don't know if you have the space. So some more extra deck considerations, one that I can very much consider right away, and that's access code talker. Access code in this deck is something that a lot of people have been considering post Age of Overlord, because it's one of those things where the deck becomes more toolboxy and it's not very constricted to warriors, because, well, a lot of the time you are doing the general combos, and if you're going second, you're just going to make access code and pop your entire board, and pop your opponent's entire board and OTK them. So it's something I'm going to consider, but maybe not right now. Then one of the other cards from Age of Overlord that I'm considering just putting in the deck regardless of how expensive it is SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is an incredibly strong card that actually is warping the game around it. Even in the OCG, this card is incredibly strong. What it does is, if this card is linked summon using a fusion, synchro, exceeds, or link monster as link material, target a card in the field or in either graveyard, banish it. Also, your monster cannot attack directly when you activate this effect this turn. When your opponent activates a card or effects, quick effect, target up to 2 face-up monsters on the field, including a monster you control, banish them both until the end phase. So in a lot of decks that can make this pretty quickly, so in something like Unchained or Sprite that can use OP Masquerena or Unchained Soul of Rage, reverse that as respectively, this card becomes incredibly strong. But even in this deck where we don't particularly have the space for it, if we can fit one and add it to our end board, it then makes our end board go from, okay, this is kind of formidable, to Jesus fucking Christ, this is really hard to get over. So yeah, that's what I'm currently thinking about for the tech choices. But yeah, so that's what I'm currently thinking about.
So ladies and gentlemen, it is the 14th of October 2023, and it's a little earlier than I would have liked, but the reason we are awake so early is we are actually going back over to locals for a Age of Overlord pre-release that I had spoken about. So yeah, let's get into that. So ladies and gentlemen, we are back from locals, and it's going to be one of those things where unfortunately I was actually unable to record a lot of stuff from locals, which was a little bit annoying, but hey, we do what we got to do. Well, it was mainly my own fault actually. I completely had forgotten to leave a little bit early because I actually had some personal stuff to deal with. However, we did manage to get the one copy of Angelica's Angelic Ring, which is always very good for us. So, also, in our sneak peek, I did actually also manage to get a copy of Duelist of the Black Witch in my promo packs. So, that's always a lot of fun. So yeah, let me explain to you guys why Angelica's Angelic Ring in this deck is actually so powerful. So, assumedly that we go completely uncontested into our board, we would generally end on something like this. A Link 2 at the top, normally a lot of the time it's a sword, but in this instance it's Ferocious Flame Swordsman, a Charlemagne, and a Mortal Phoenix Gearfried. These are the three that we generally try and end on as much as we can. So, assuming our board goes uncontested, we will go into the end phase of our turn and declare the effect of Infernoble Emperor Charles, targeting the Angelica's Angelic Ring in our graveyard to then equip it to said Charlemagne. We will just put it smack bang there. Then obviously equip a Fire Warrior directly from the deck, which a lot of the time is Infernoble Oliver. So, the point in Angelica's Angelic Ring in the deck now over something like maybe the third Durandal or Metal Silver Armor is the fact that it gives our board a bit more rigidity into something like Dark Ruler or Forbidden Droplets, because Angelica's Angelic Ring is one of those cards that, regardless of how your opponent tries to deal with it, unless it's specifically removed from the game, it's going to be quite hard, because the way its effects applies is that it will negate the first spell or trap that my opponent activates. So if my opponent tries to activate Forbidden Droplet, even though they send a spell, it will resolve negated because of Angelica's Angelic Ring's effect. It does not respond, it just kind of applies its effect in a very similar manner to some other cards, which I can't think of off the top of my head, unfortunately. But a lot of the time, this is also pretty good for time, as you can, well, gain 500 life points, destroy this equipped card, and then there it says that the card cannot be targeted with card effects, which in a lot of instances we have Infernoble Oliver for that, so that effect doesn't particularly matter. It's normally time, the gain 500 lifetime effect is where it matters. So that's the point in why Angelica's Angelic Ring is in the deck.
Right. Jesus Christ, how's your voice crack? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the third week of the series, or of the episode, and today we're gonna hope to do significantly better than last time, considering the fact that we went completely defeated last time and it was a bit unfortunate. So this time around we're gonna hopefully do a lot better, and this time we have Age of Overlord legal, so we have Angelica's Angelic Ring to work with, and if we had it, SP Little Knight to also work with, which I've seen some of the prices that card goes for now. Fucking Christ. So yeah, let's get into it. Apologies about the sudden jump, ladies and gentlemen. It's one of those things where I have actually been kind of busy in the last couple of days with personal matter stuff, but it's one of those things where I'm back now, and well, we are actually currently here recording, which is always very good for me. So it's been a couple of days since the locals, and it's going to be one of those things where I actually made a mistake when it comes to the list I actually played with last week. It turns out that I had actually cut 2 Ogier instead of 1, so instead of just playing 1 Angelica's Angelic Ring and 2 Ogier, I was actually playing 1 of both cards, which oddly enough I actually didn't miss all that much. I didn't miss the second Ogier all that much, because I actually never summoned Ogier all that much singly, and even if I did, I always had Noble Arms Museum, or a way to get to it, or even just an Infernoble Knight, or even, hell, a Warrior Extender for that matter. So I didn't particularly need it all that much, or at least need the second one, because, well, it only comes up like once or twice. So yeah, that's what I actually made a mistake on. So, locals last week was, I wouldn't say a lot better by any stretch of the imagination. Quite frankly, it could have been a lot better and a lot worse. But I actually went into the format more on learning because, well, as I said in the previous clip, this was the first episode, or not episode, this was the first week that Age of Overlord was actually legal in the format. So we have the Diabell Star stuff to worry about, Chimera, the new Chimera fusion, which allows you to barrier statue lock on your opponent's turn, which is really weird. We had to worry about that as well. The horror stuff we had to worry about, and obviously we have some other little things here and there that we could be potentially worrying about, like Pendulum Magicians and all that. But for now, let's focus on what happened at locals. Let's get into round 1. And so, our first round was against someone I know very well, and obviously, he is my best friend, and that's Andrew, and he decided in his infinite wisdom to play the deck he's actually known for when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! And especially around in our local scene, and that's Heroes. And well, he actually won the dice roll and opted to go first, and unfortunately, I know what Andrew's like when it comes to drawing the singular increase in his deck.
Did you draw increase? No. Did you just show the chat? Don't show me, show the chat. Never. How many increase do you play? 1 or 2?
And he drew the singular increase. So it's one of those things where, like, he actually kind of had full combo, but he just had to play it slightly weirdly, and well, drawing increase as a hero player, to my knowledge, as a very limited knowledge hero player, I don't play heroes at all actually, drawing increase fucking sucks. But considering the fact that we also had complete full combo as well as a double infinite impermanent sitting in our hand, what the fuck was he gonna do? There was not a lot he could do. So he asked me if I had full combo. I responded to him that I did, and he just decided to scoop it up to game 2.
I'll ask you straight, you have full combo in hand?
Yes.
Game 2.
Where obviously he would be able to hopefully be able to do better. And well, game 2, I very much knew that I was going second because I know what Andrew's like. He likes to go first with heroes. So I started in our Dark Ruler No Mores and our Evenly matches, and actually saw both of them.
I don't think I've ever seen standby. Memphis one. Go activate Dark Ruler no more.
Okay.
Battle phase.
End of that phase. I drew evenly for my first hand, and then when it came to my turn, I actually drew Darkcrawler for the turn, which was very, very nice. If Andrew also didn't have an abundance of interruptions sitting in his hand in the form of like, think of like Ash, Imperm, and maybe a Bestial or something. I don't fucking know. I can't quite remember the specifics of it. It was just based down to it. But he unfortunately managed to just completely fuck over my entire strategy. And well, Impermanent Assault, unfortunately, when you don't have an extender, kind of fucking sucks. So yeah, we unfortunately had to scoop up game 2, and considering the fact that he left the fusion spell, which allowed him to make Infernal Rage and Neos into Shining Neos Wingman, and then just combo off from there, eventually in his turn, when he drew whatever he drew, I can't quite remember, I just knew I had to go to game 2, or game 3 directly from there. So, that all-important game 3 is always where it's at in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel, or even any card game duel for that matter, if they happen to do a best of 3 format. But unfortunately, considering the fact that we opened 3 equipped spells and a Renowned, which actually doesn't do anything on its own, unfortunately, we just could not do anything. And considering the fact that Andrew had full combo and did not draw the increase this time, he did not draw it. I will vouch for him on this one. We just had to unfortunately scoop up the game 3 and go with a 1-2 record going into round 2.
Round 2 was actually up against one of the shinier decks of the format, or one of the newer decks when I say shinier, and that is Luke and his Runic Horus deck, which I've played against this deck before. It fucking sucks. It's not very fun to play against, and it's something I have been considering. Well, the Horus engine, less Runic, but that's besides the point. He actually won the die roll and decided to go first, and which he seemed to open up a slightly clunky hand, which he just didn't actually do anything related to the horror stuff. He just made a standard Runic board of like of like a couple back row, one of which was unknown, a Hugin, and that's pretty much about it. It came to us for turn, we drew a card. It clearly wasn't that important because I actually can't remember it. We had Neospace Connector though, so that's always a good start. We normal summon the Neospace Connector and attempt to activate its effects, and Luke flips Tikaboo. So that Neospatian Aquadolphin we were going to have, no, never going to have it in a million years. So it actually just turned into Connector Beatdown for like a good couple of turns, when unfortunately he managed to top deck the King Sarcophagus, which is the foolish burial for the Horus monsters, send every single one of them to the graveyard, inherent summon them all back, and make some motherfucking rank 8s that were very, very large and very hard to out. And considering the fact that he was drawing like nearly 6 cards per turn with the Horus and the Runic engine, I definitely wasn't going to win from there, so we just scooped it up to game 2. And considering this is a Runic deck of any sort of proportions, I decided to side in all of my spell and trap removal, especially 3 Cosmic Cyclone, because being able to get that Runic Fountain back off of Jerry or Hugin, I can't remember which one it is a lot of the time, is very much imperative. We need to get rid of that main field spell. So we actually managed to go first and actually set up the entire first turn board. So we ended up with Ferocious Flame Swordsman, Immortal Phoenix Gearfried, and a Charlemagne that was equipped with Infernoble Knights Oliver and the new Angel Ring. So it was going to be one of those things where it was going to be pretty hard for him to out. So Angel Ring managed to negate the first Runic spell. We negated the King Sarcophagus with the Charlemagne, and it's one of those things where he actually summoned the new Anti-Zeus on us over the top of a Jerry. So you know those 3,000 plus attack monsters that we were going to use their effects on, like the negate on the Mortal Phoenix Gearfried, or even the negate on fucking Charles, or Emperor Charles the Great, and even the pop on that card for that matter. Yeah, no, we weren't going to do that. And as soon as he summoned that card, it completely sealed it for us. The floodgates didn't matter. It was just one of those cards that I just physically could not get over. And well, considering the fact that he just kept keeping it alive with the Runic spell, I can't completely remember which one it is, I think it's Slumber. He kept keeping it alive with Slumber, and I just unfortunately could not get in for any damage whatsoever. So he managed to take the game 2-0, and unfortunately we are down 2 matches, so we are X2 unfortunately. And round 3, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we got the bye, which I very much understand that it's technically counted as a win, but it feels like a really shit win, and unfortunately it's not the type of win I want in this video. So we are going to go kind of back to the drawing board and actually figure out some stuff for this format going into the final week of this episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at this very familiar screen. We are very much going to be trying to cook a newer version of the deck for the final week of this episode. And well, as you can tell, there are some very outgoing changes, I would suppose, or changes that you can very much see. So let's get straight into that. Let's not dilly-dally by talking. So, let's start with, the two OGA. I decided to play the second one because I did actually kind of miss doing the double Charlemagne push that I do every now and again with, if I open OGA plus Noble Arms Museum. I do kind of miss it a lot, so I do kind of want to bring it back in. I decided to cut Infernoble Knight's Amorgus and, well, put in Infernoble Knight's Astolfo instead, because, well, it actually acts as a free extender, and it can optionally be any level that I choose it to be. It could be a level 4, a level 9 if I really want it, or a level 1, hell, even a level 5 with the second red layer. So I've decided to play that, and, well, if I really wanted to, I can banish this card and special summon it during the second standby phase, as well as special summon another Fire Warrior monster alongside it. That effect probably won't come up too much, and it hasn't come up too much during testing, so I haven't really worried about it all too much. Heritage of the Chalice has been cut down from 3 to 2. Don't get me wrong, I'm very well aware that this card is incredible all on its own. It's really good, searches me Noble Arms Museum if I don't have it, searches me any Infernoble name that I'm missing, but it's one of those things where, like, a lot of the time, if I have this, Rotor just gets me to where I need to go anyway, and Rotor searches me every level 4 or level warrior in the deck alongside Neospace Connector, so I decided to cut it down to 2. And well, not much has changed in the terms of the Infernoble stuff. I was going to put it down to 2 Durandal so I can play at 40, but I seem to miss the third Durandal quite a lot. So I decided to just keep it as it is. So I'm going to be playing 2 Super Quantum Red Layer. A lot of people decide to play 2 Fire Flint Lady over 2 Red Layer, but I don't have 2 Fire Flint Lady, so we're just kind of going with that. So a lot of the other stuff in the deck hasn't changed, apart from the fact that, as I said, I wanted to try and play King Artorigus this time around over Dempsey. Not that Dempsey is bad, Dempsey is actually an incredible card, love playing it, but I just want to try and change it up every now and again, and especially I've had the ulti just sitting in the binder doing nothing, so why not? But where the main set of changes come is the addition of the 3 Nibiru the Primal being in the Saint deck. I am very well aware that Nibiru this format is probably very, very good, but also very, very bad against a lot of decks, because it's one of those cards that's very, I wouldn't say situational, but if you know your opponent doesn't run any negates before 5 summons, you're going to be perfectly fine on it. But if you're playing something like the newly buffed Pendulum Magicians or the newly buffed Manadium, where they very much make negates under 5 summons as easy as you can say your own name, this card kind of fucking sucks. But that's why this card's here, that's why we have Dark Ruler Evening, to break those types of boards. So yeah, those are the changes. Let's hope we can do better at the final locals for this episode.
So, remember this clip? And if we had it, SP Little Knight to also work with, which I've seen some of the prices that card goes for now. Fucking Christ. Well, I may have gotten lucky with 3 booster boxes. What does this mean for the deck? It actually means that we have a backup plan that's actually a lot better, in addition to, well, adding an additional interruption to our end board if we happen to draw any summonable extender plus Neospace Connector. But before I show you how we get to that, why is this card such a big deal? Let's go over its effects. If this card is link summoned using a Fusion, Synchro, Exceed, or Link monster as material, you can target 1 card on the field or in either graveyard, banish it. Also, your monsters cannot attack directly this turn, so yeah, it's alright, I would suppose, if you use that effect, but it's the second effect is where things get a bit mad. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can target up to 2 face-up monsters on the field, including a monster you control. Banish both until the end phase. You can only activate, or you can only use each effect of SP Little Knight once per turn. So it acts as a double banish, and as an interruption we can use in our opponent's turn. Similarly, if we use IP Masquerena into Nightmare Unicorn, which a lot of decks are actually replacing said Nightmare Unicorn with Little Knight, which is a weird thought considering how long I've actually been playing. But anyway, a lot of decks will IP into this card, but considering the time we're locked into Warriors and IP as Cyberse, that's out of the question. But summoning itself is not that hard at all. Let me show you.
So, with the addition to SB Little Knight into the deck after pulling it from literally today, I'm going to show you guys the combo that actually adds it to our end board. So in this specific instance, you need an extender you can summon that has no specific limit to it. So in this case, we have a red layer and we have a normal summon. So we're going to start with Neospace Connector. So because we control no monsters, we are going to special summon the red layer. And well, we are going to start by normal summoning Neospace Connector. And assuming we go uninterrupted, this is how it goes. We will activate Neospace Connector effect on summon to special summon Neospacian Aquadolphin from the deck, as we would do in the standard round. Whereas we special summon the Aquadolphin. And then, obviously, we use the Aquadolphin and the Neospace Connector in our graveyard, or to send to graveyard to link summon into Assault, which then Assault will effect will activate on summon to get us any warrior monster that we may need that we cannot summon this turn. So in this specific instance, I'm just going to add a second Neospace Connector. If we're not going to need it, it's not going to worry about it. So we are going to actually go for the second effect of Assault, dumping, if I can find the ones, we're dumping a Durandal, an Angel Ring, so Angelica's Angelic Ring, Phoenix Blade, because we need to dump that card, very good, and obviously in this instance, because we are now playing the Artorigus build, we dump Almace. We dump those 4 cards to our graveyard to special summon the Ogier. So in a very similar manner to how we would do the Dempsey combo in very similar instance. So we then activate Ogier's effect to dump a Infernoble Knight or a Fire Warrior or a Equip spell. So we're going to dump the Turpin wherever it may be. There it is. We are going to dump the Turpin as we would, and then activate Phoenix Blade effect, banishing the Neospace Connector and the Neospacian Aquadolphin to add it back. We are obviously then going to equip the Phoenix Blades to any of the monsters we have, it doesn't particularly matter, to special summon the Turpin. We are then going to overlay these 2 cards, which then makes this fall off into Artorigus. Artorigus obviously has its effect on summon to target up to 2 Noble Arms equip spells in our graveyard and equip them to this card, of which we will then activate Durandal's effect, searching us a Infernoble Knight's Ricardetto specifically, if I can find it. There is the boy. There he is. Obviously, we have the Neospace Connector in our hand. It was off screen. So, and then obviously, it destroys itself. Of which we will then activate the Almace effect to tag itself out into the only Infernoble Arms we actually did not send from the deck, Infernoble Arms Joyeuse. Now this is where things slightly differ. We would normally link off the Artorigus and the Assault into a second Assault, but because we have an extra body, we can actually keep the Assault on field, linking off the Artorigus and the extra body, which will make the Joyeuse fall off, into the newly pulled SB Little Knight, which then obviously gives us an interruption pretty early on in the turn, of which we can then activate Joyeuse effect to special summon the Ricardetto and then go on as normal. We don't need to do anything, we just can continue with our board. So the good thing is that I'm going to show you, we will activate Ricardetto effect, targeting the Ogier in our graveyard and special summoning it. That's the Turpin. Actually, it doesn't matter in this instance. Special summon it back. We will then synchro for 5 into Angelica, the actual only copy in the deck now, because I had to cut the second one for SP. Obviously, we will activate the Angelica effect on summon, searching us Noble Arms Museum. Sorry about the glare. Which we will then activate said museum. I'm just going to put it up there for now so you guys can see. We will obviously search for an Infernoble Arms. We will search for a Durandal. We're not going to activate it. It doesn't matter. We don't really need to worry about it. We just need to activate the effect for the second effect, of which we're going to activate Ogier effect in our graveyard to target any warrior monster. I choose to not target Angelica a lot of the time because it's an if effect, so it can trigger off of this and you can obviously fuck it up. So I'm going to target the SB Little Knight and equip it to where the glare is, unfortunately. We will then activate the effect of Noble Arms Museum, targeting our Ogier because we apply the previous effect, to special summon it. We can then activate the effect of Phoenix Blade once again, banishing the red layer and the Artorigus to add it back. We will then obviously go activate Divine Sword of Phoenix Blade, target Angelica. We will then activate Angelica, obviously, because it's been targeted, dumping. It doesn't really matter in a lot of instances, it's just very, very helpful. We were going to just dump a Stolfo. It doesn't really matter. This is where I'm actually kind of regretting taking out Infernoble or Morgul's out of the deck. So, because it's good to get a Pot of Avarice. Oh. Then, obviously, it falls off and it tags itself out. Apologies, there was a fly. So we will then, obviously, tag it onto Roland, of which we can then synchro off the Ogier and the Roland into the level 9 Charles. And, well, said level 9 Charles will equip the Roland, obviously not through its own effect, just through by Roland's effect. Obviously, we can trigger this if we would like to. And now, we actually have 2 available zones. We can either summon it to the zone where the Emperor Charles is currently, or down and to the right of where the Isolde is. But because of the way we can actually do this, we are going to link off the Charles into the zone to the left of SP Little Knight, which then obviously gives us the zone here to still work with if we choose to, or the zone like directly to the right. So obviously we will go through that, and well, we normally end on the standard board, but we actually have an extra interruption in the form of SP Little Knight, and well, technically we actually have 2 interruptions. We obviously, if we're going second, this card is incredible. So yeah, let me show you why I also put SP Little Knight into the deck. So ladies and gentlemen, assuming we go through the standard Neospace Connector combo and we decided not to overcommit to it, we actually go through obviously normal summon and so on and so forth, and we attempt to activate the effect of Assault, but it gets impermed or ashed. So what do we do here? Normally we would fucking cringe and cry about it, but say for example if we drew Fire Flint Lady or an Extender monster, we can special summon said Extender monster and link off the 2 monsters into SP Little Knight herself and use her as a very, not niche, but a very specific interruption, assuming we obviously have like more hand traps in hand. She is what we call a backup plan. Very similar to how I played Scareclaw Tryhard in Vanadium, because well, before the level 6 Synchro came out, it was very hard to play through draw, and to my knowledge, it still actually kind of is. So I played Tryhard as a way to just kind of balance out the deck from getting absolutely fucked. This is in a very similar vein, because obviously it acts as a double interruption on summon. It banishes a card, then it can banish multiple cards during your opponent's turn, or even yours. So obviously you can banish itself if you choose to. You can do literally anything with it. So it acts as a pseudo interruption, I would suppose, and well, a backup plan.
So that's SP's purpose in the deck. But now what's come to the all-important decision. What do we cut for it? Surprisingly, this wasn't hard at all. As soon as I pulled it, I actually very much knew what I was going to take out. I had 2 choices. Either the secondary Angelica, which was what I was actually going with at the time, or the Baguska. Well, we chose the Baguska. Despite it being a pretty good stall card, I never particularly summoned it once, and I personally believe we can play a lot better without it. Also, I'm going to put Infernoble or Morgul's back into the deck, as I personally think that the card in this version of the deck where we're playing Artoragos is actually a lot better. And I honestly did miss the Pot of Avarice effect for any free Fire Warriors and or equip spells. So we will be replacing the main deck Roland for it, which is perfectly fine by me. I might be able to fit it back in. But yeah, on to locals.
Well, alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to locals for the 4th and final time for this episode of The Source. And well, hopefully this will actually be the culmination of quite a fair few weeks of cooking. But as I'm currently walking, I would like to also talk about a version of the deck that I didn't consider all that much until recently, and that is Sinful Spoils Infernoble Knights. So on the screen is a list I was given for said Sinful Spoils Infernoble Knights list. And I didn't consider it all that much, unfortunately, because of how much the spell is. I believe it's called like Wanted Seeker of the Sinful Spoils or something like that. I can't quite remember. But the reason I didn't consider it is because the spell is like 50 quid a copy, and despite me having access to some other cards like Thrust and all that, I unfortunately don't have the current capacity to have or to play the version of the deck. But the thing is about that version of the deck is that I actually don't know a lot about it. I don't know how the Sinful Spores engine interacts with the rest of the deck, or how it even gets us to the same board. And with, obviously, this being the last week, I unfortunately can't devote the time all that much. But back to locals, or back to what I was saying. Hopefully, we can do a lot better today with what I have gone with. Obviously, you guys have seen the general gist of it, but hopefully we should be able to at least take a couple matches today. So yeah, let's get into it. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we did not take it home this locals at all. Actually, we didn't do any better this week. And, well, it's a little discouraging when it comes to playing the deck and learning it and hoping that you would actually learn something new from it. Or new from learning it, from getting beaten. Whatever the fuck the case they may be. This deck just, unfortunately, didn't perform massively good in comparison to some of the other decks like I've played in the past, like Morancess or Scareclaw. However, that does not mean this deck is bad by any stretch of the imagination, or even if I personally don't think it's a good deck. Because it is. The deck is incredible in a lot of instances, but unfortunately, in comparison to some other decks in the format right now, so Mannadium, Tearlaman, Runic Horus, or any Horus deck for that matter, and especially Sinful Spores Rescue Ace, it doesn't do a lot, and it doesn't do what it needs to within the current meta. Is it a bad deck by any stretch of the imagination? Absolutely not. I really liked this deck, and I personally think that if you are on slightly a budget for this format and you don't really want to pick up any of the shit road decks, or you just want to actually learn a deck that's somewhat competent, that requires a lot more brain power that even I possess a lot of the time, this is a very good deck for you to try. And I personally think that if you want to pick it up, you should. Everything is pretty much cheap apart from, well, this crazy motherfucker. Apart from that, but even then, you don't need to play Little Knight in the deck, or the only expensive card you technically need in the deck, at least currently, is Baron de Fleur. But even then, with the Rarity Collection coming out in a couple of weeks to a week, I actually don't know the official date for it, the card's going to be incredibly cheap regardless, as it seems to be a common card, unless you want to max rarity it. But that's besides the point. My final verdict on this deck is that it's too big brain for me. I personally had this constant feeling that I was doing something wrong, or I had committed too many resources into the main play, or if I had, well, gone into a different card. And there were so many things I could have done better when playing the deck. And, well, every now and again, you get those decks like that, and this was definitely one of those decks for me. However, this deck is, as I said, incredible, and I would implore you guys to play it. And if you guys don't know what I've decided to play, here's the list. This is the list I decided to play for the final week of the Source Infernoble Night. And, well, that's all from me for today, guys. If you guys enjoyed this very long video, I'm very well aware of these videos are incredibly long. I'm still trying to figure out the format. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to drop a like and a subscription, as well as comment down below what you guys thought of the video. And, well, especially with something new like this new microphone I have, whoop-de-doo, very shiny, I decided to see what else I could do, and considering I have more time to work on the videos now, I'm very happy with how this video has turned out within the editing process. But that's all from me. Have a good one, stay safe, happy dueling, and catch you later.